It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio.
Welcome to RealAg Radio here on Friday, November 10th. I am your host, Lyndsey Smith, and we have a jam-packed show for you today. So it is a beef market update Friday. So Anne Wasko is going to join me for the beef market update right after the break. And then, of course, it's Friday, Issues Panel Day. Surprise, I'm here hosting because Shaun Haney and a crew are all off to Germany, getting ready to cover Agritechnica next week in Hanover, Germany. So we're going to see, right now it's all up in the air on whether or not Shaun is actually going to make it for the Issues Panel, but I know for a fact that Kelvin Heppner, here with RealAgriculture, and Cherilyn Jolly-Nagel, farmer out of Mossbank, Saskatchewan, is going to join me later for the Issues Panel, so stick around for that. If you've got any feedback on today's show, 1-855-776-6147, or zip me an email, lsmith@realagriculture.com. Let's take a quick break, and I'll be back with a beef market update right after this.
As a grower, you spend a lot of time focused on the details. And sometimes it's only after harvest that you can step back and see the bigger picture. At AGI, we spend a lot of time focused on details too, making sure you can store your grain how you need to and move it when you need to. Learn more at aggrowth.com.
Peter Johnson at WheatPete, RealAgriculture.com. I'm the host of The Word, and I love doing The Word. I love the questions. I love the challenges. I love having to apply agronomics to all over the globe and areas outside of my normal jurisdiction. Also, I love the feedback the most, where growers challenge me, tell me about their plot results, help me to learn. The Word, absolutely the best part of my day.
As you look ahead to the next growing season, there's a lot to consider when it comes to your crop. You need every possible advantage available to you. The Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com has everything you need to make the best choice for you and your farm. On-demand videos with leading industry experts, available anywhere, anytime. Go into the season confident and ready with the Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on this Friday. I am your host, Lyndsey Smith, and this segment is brought to you by the Grow Canada Conference. The world needs more of what Canada grows. Join agriculture industry leaders from across the country at Grow Canada in Calgary from November 28th to 30th. Visit growcanadaconference.ca to register. All right, we are bringing in Anne Wasko of the Gateway Livestock Exchange. It is time for the beef market update. Welcome here, Anne.
Thanks, Lyndsey.
This is, okay, I haven't talked to you in about a month. I like that we're doing this more often. But I missed a lot. So maybe we'll unpack some of what I missed. Where are we at with prices? Let's go through those first south of the border.
Well, just to start off, Lyndsey, I'm sort of wishing that maybe I'd missed a lot. It's been a tough week, to be very blunt with you. In the cattle markets, kind of doesn't matter where you are, north or south. But yeah, let's lead off with the prices. U.S. cash in the southern part of the U.S. this week, we're going to call it 4 to 5 lower than last week. That's at 180 to 181. In the north feeding regions, the live market was down $4, also that 180 to 181, and $5 lower dressed at that 287 delivered. And again, as I've alluded to, led by another big down in the cattle futures. Shaun and I talked about one a couple weeks ago, and after the bearish on feed report, and it seems like we just continue to not be able to get out from that dark cloud. So just a comparison, even from last Friday, Lyndsey, December live cattle, and this is to Thursday night because it hasn't opened yet when we're doing this call. But December live cattle off $10 US from a week ago.
Wow. They're
off $18 a hundred from their September high. And roll out to a 2024 contract. February, for example, is down $11 from last Friday, and $21 off the September high. So these aren't small changes I'm talking about. And if somebody's got cattle on feed, there's been a big impact. And again, the bearish report from 3 weeks ago in the U.S., the big placement numbers, it's showing that there's more cattle against Q1 of 24, and so markets are trying to figure things out. But the other thing that's just continuing to happen here is over the last few weeks is the choice cutout, or the cutout, that wholesale price. It keeps moving lower, and this is usually when we've got a pretty strong seasonal increase to the wholesale price. So the fact that it's going the opposite direction as expectations has meant the market has, for several reasons, economy, outside influences, you name it, has lost confidence.
It's never a good sign when a price starts moving against the seasonal average when it hits your pocketbook. It rarely goes the other way. Let's put it that way.
It does, and especially when some things are, very solid seasonals.
Yeah.
And it's not just south of the border. Here in Western Canada, fed cattle prices this week were $3 lower dressed, so we're down to $3.87 delivered. And packers, to me, look like they're pretty comfortable with inventory. Some are, now buying cash cattle out into the second half of December. So that means if you're a seller into this market, your bargaining position, or the leverage piece, however you want to call it, certainly is, you're in a tough spot. And same thing, looking for when that might improve. We've had big placements. We've talked about that even here in Western Canada. So it's not like numbers are going to get smaller in the first quarter of next year. So,
well, it does surprise me, I suppose, and it'd be great to have your insight into. I mean, we did see that incredible run up in prices. For the first time in a long time, hearing the cow-calf sector really excited about the prices that they're getting. Are we surprised this has flipped so quickly on these bigger picture numbers, or did we see that some of these indications were signaling that this could happen?
Well, I think on the supply side, it is what it is. We've certainly, and Shaun and I talked about this 2 weeks ago, you can move numbers around. The drought has meant we've placed cattle sooner and things like that. Record prices brings cattle to town, and we're placing more heifers, and, all of those pieces that, could have been one way or the other have certainly been to the way of more cattle on feed, but at some point it means less. But that's obviously now that can's been kicked down the road a ways. So that piece, I guess, a big question that we're all looking at and wondering about, and always do because it's tough to predict, but is the demand piece. And that's where I think there's starting to feel like and build more concern around the demand side. We know retail prices are high, especially on the beef front, and especially compared to some of the other competing proteins. Do you want to run through some of those prices? I know you had a recent experience.
I did, and so yeah. Before we move on to a few other things, this is one of the things that I'm noticing, and of course this is very localized. It's anecdotal, but just this past week, I went into a grocery store for equivalent amounts of protein. So this was just a ground product. For beef was $14. For pork, it was $6.20. How, as someone buying groceries, am I choosing beef? That's a tough one.
Yeah. And then that matches kind of what StatsCan released their last retail data for Canada. And beef prices in September were 7% higher than last year. Pork was down 6%. And chicken was no change. And that's just taking the month of September. Yeah. So, and that trend's kind of been going on all this year. So, I think there's various things going on, but certainly that consumer piece and the demand piece is something we're going to have to watch closely.
Now, we did see perhaps some good news on the feeder side, a teeny little glimmer with the WASDE report coming out. Not good news for a corn producer, but maybe a glimmer of good news for someone who's feeding cattle.
Yeah, for sure. So another report this week out of the U.S. on the U.S. corn crop, and it is certainly pointing towards, bigger yield and bigger production, thereby lower prices ahead. And that's certainly going to help for that 2024 cost of gain, whether you're a pork producer or a cattle producer. So that's going to support. And I think really, if you're looking at the cash feeder market, even here in Western Canada this week, right up to the most recent numbers I've seen, they've been holding very solid. So even though we talked about all this negativity and lower prices on the front end and the feeders or the futures, it certainly hasn't been affecting the.
Okay, so moving to, we do have a report out later today that's going to look at Canadian numbers of cattle on feed. What's the expectation of this report?
Yeah, well, Canfax does release their November 1st cattle on feed report for Western Canada later today, so we're going to get a better look at the placements in October. But, judging on what we've seen going through auction markets, we're going to say that it's going to be a pretty active number. And then on the other side of the coin, we also know how many cattle. We've been watching the weekly harvest rates in Canada for fed cattle, and they've been slower. So I think between bigger placements and smaller marketings, their report this afternoon is probably going to show that our on-feed numbers on November 1 are still above a year ago, and it's only been the last couple of months that we've seen that kind of situation occurring. So we'll see. We'll report that back next time we chat. And then just to kind of, I guess part of the pieces that we don't always clearly know is that live cattle trade piece. So Did more fed cattle move to the U.S.? And so StatsCan did come out with their September numbers. It's always delayed or lagged. But fed cattle exports were certainly up in September. And I think that's, part of that is the big negative basis levels that we've got in Western Canada, more cattle making their way into the U.S. So they were up 37% in September. Year to date, they're up 10%, so more fat cattle heading south. On the feeder cattle side, it's been quiet until September. And then we saw big exports. They were double versus last September. Year to date, they're still down, but it was interesting to see the action in September. And then just to finish up on the last category of slaughtered cows, also up until lately, or up until this last report, packers in Canada had been doing really strong work to keep the cows in Canada for slaughter, but slaughter cow exports in September were also up 12%. So, just an indication of how fluid that border can be. When we've got big supplies here, we certainly need that exit or point for excess supplies to move into.
And it's one of those reminders, of course, that this is how cattle move with Canada and the U.S.
Exactly.
Sometimes they come north, sometimes they go south. Yes.
Right. Next time we'll talk about feeder cattle imports. So, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, Anne, definitely plenty of things to watch for. I'm sorry it's been such a bad week. I hope next time we talk, it's much, much happier. Let's try.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thanks so much, Anne. Okay. We'll be back with more RealAg Radio right after this.
Are you concerned about the continuing rise of input costs and your increasing risk to plant a crop? My name's Paul Sinkovich, President at Vantage Ag. We believe that the days of placing all of your fertilizer needs at seeding time and hoping for a crop are behind us. Join us at AgriTrade in Red Deer, November 9th, as we are hosting an information meeting to showcase how our new nano-liquid fertilizer technology will reduce your risk. Call 778-919-3370 to reserve your seat today.
Whether you're a rookie soybean grower or a seasoned vet, the Soybean School on RealAgriculture.com has exactly what you need to stay in the game. The latest research and the best agronomic advice from industry experts, along with local and global market coverage on demand, anywhere, anytime. Make this growing season your best growing season with the Soybean School on RealAgriculture.com.
When it comes to your farm, you demand performance, because what goes in determines what comes out. At Pride Seeds, we deliver on performance. With best-in-class corn hybrid seed, you'll see results when it comes to premium yield in all the ways that matter. Moisture, nutrition, dollars per acre, and of course, tonnage. So discover your farm's advantage, the Pride Seeds advantage. Visit your local dealer or prideseeds.com today. Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on this Friday. I am your host, Lyndsey Smith. And before we bring in the issues panel, I do want to send a shout out to our segment sponsor, and that's Alliance Seed. Brought to you by Alliance Seed and CDC Endure Oats. Top yields, excellent disease resistance, and the quality end users ask for. All in one great oat variety. CDC Endure is available through Alliance Seed authorized retailers. Visit allianceseed.com. All right. We may or may not have a Shaun Haney on this program today, but we will have Mr. Kelvin Heppner out of Altona, Manitoba. Welcome here, Kelvin.
Thank you. Good to be here, Lyndsey. Lots to talk about again this week.
Oh my gosh, we've got a lot. And joining us from Mossbank, Saskatchewan, we've got Cherilyn Jolly-Nagel. Hello, Cherilyn.
Hi, Sean who? You know,
we don't.
Sean's on this show, he doesn't stop talking. You know, we got so much to cover. It's like Sean.
Sean, that's right. So let's focus on us, everybody. Anyway, just quickly, of course, Agritechnica goes next week, and so plenty of the RealAg team is right now, as we speak, traveling on their way to Hanover, Germany. So, Kelvin, you dodged the bullet on this one and got to stay home. How's that working out?
Well, I would have liked to have gone to Germany as well, but we had some things at home that I had to take care of, so it just didn't work. But yeah, looking forward to hearing all the reports back from and all the stories that maybe we won't share on the radio, but some of the stories that they come home with. Yes,
I have never been, but Kelvin, you have, and of course, I think for Shaun and Jay, this is maybe their fourth time going. It's kind of. I think it is 4 already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Time flies.
And we are seeing some.
I haven't been.
You haven't been, Cherilyn? Okay.
I haven't been. No, but David has been. My husband has been. He said it's incredible. He will not go to the farm shows in Saskatchewan. He was absolutely blown away by the farm show over there. Just incredible.
Yeah.
Just huge.
It is just, it's huge, and everybody invests. That's kind of the top of the line kind of thing in terms of where they put their budgets. And once you come home from there, other farm shows are different. But it does seem like more Canadians and North American farmers are making it a kind of a winter holiday or a farm business kind of holiday combo trip. And so, yeah.
Not even just from Canada. So I sit as a board member for the Global Farmer Network. And so we're kind of keeping track of our GFN members around the world that are heading over to Germany right now. And from everywhere, India, New Zealand, of course, the US, there's some members of ours from Canada that are headed there, Germany itself, but all over in the UK. Everywhere this show is dragging farmers from absolutely every part of the globe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The world is getting smaller.
Yeah, it's true, and they're all meeting in Germany. But I mean, it is the first one in 4 years, so I guess it's been well worth it. Well, we look forward to all the videos that'll come back from that. And thank you to Corteva for sponsoring our coverage there. Optimum Gly is bringing you all of RealAg's coverage of that show. Okay, let's dig in. It has been a very busy week. And Kelvin, I'm going to start with what I'm calling, I'll be honest, I'm a little ticked about this one. And I'm using very kind language because we're on the radio. I've used some much more colorful stuff offline. But the Senate has been up to more shenanigans on Bill C-234. What happened yesterday?
Yeah, so on Tuesday we saw a major vote that farm groups and farmers had campaigned to have the Senate reject this amended version of Bill C-234. This is the legislation that would remove the federal government's carbon tax from natural gas and propane used on farms for an 8-year period. There was an amendment or a version of the bill that would have carved that out basically, and it would have sent it back to the House of Commons where it would have been delayed indefinitely. And that was defeated, so farm groups and farmers were celebrating and quite excited about that major hurdle that was cleared on Tuesday. But then yesterday, Thursday, third reading in the Senate, another amendment was allowed to be introduced after some games were played in the Senate, and the Speaker allowed this amendment to go through. And then now, without getting too technical, there is a pathway for the government and the senators that are aligned with the Prime Minister's office on this issue. There is a way that they can delay this for as long as they want, basically, if they want to put the political capital into it. And it sure looks like at this point like they are investing major political capital to obstruct this bill from going ahead. There have been quite a few different tactics deployed here that would be considered breaking with convention and breaking with the normal rules of procedure in the Senate. And so it's a lot of drama, and Yeah, like you said, Lyndsey, it's tough to remain completely objective as a journalist on this one because of I think it's reached the point where it's hurting faith in this institution, in the Senate, and the whole idea that the Senate is supposed to be nonpartisan and that it's supposed to be offer that sober second thought, but not directly interfere and block what MPs have approved, and members of Parliament who are elected, unlike senators, have approved Bill C-234 and its predecessor. There was a separate bill that had the same intent that died when the 2021 federal election was called. So multiple times this concept has been approved by elected members of Parliament, and here is the Senate running interference and trying to block this. And it sure looks like it's at the direction of the Prime Minister's office and the federal cabinet.
So, Cherilyn, I mean, you've certainly in your career, many boards, lots of lobbying, looking at the political spectrum, good governance and following the rules. Yeah, we all want to know the rules so that we can use them to our best abilities. But this really, as Kelvin alluded to, there's been a break in procedure. There's been unprecedented decisions made, people being cut off before they could finish what they were saying to close, arguments. How important is it to have integrity in this process of having bills become law?
Honestly, Lyndsey, I just throw my hands in the air. For 20 years, not only have I been interested in policy work and the role of government in agriculture and trying to sort that out in my head, I've also been trying to get other farmers, my farming peers interested in policy, the rules of agriculture. And time and again, I get back, I don't like politics. The reason farmers don't want to get involved in policy is they hate the game of politics. And I try to counter that because, of course, there's a connection between policy and politics, but you don't have to like politics to still feel obligated to be involved in policy. But this one this will become the new poster child for reasons why nobody likes politics, why it's just complete BS. This is absolutely ridiculous, especially on something like carbon tax on grain drying. I mean, I even love this thing from the beginning, but I thought it's like, at least you could give us a break on natural gas, propane, on heating livestock barns and grain drying. That's the very least you can do. So I was willing to move ahead with the very least. And then this happens on the very least of what they should do. Incredible.
Well, and to Kelvin's point, this is a bill that is essentially the second iteration of one that was defeated. They've been incredibly consistent, and many people sort of look at it, and when this has been lobbied for, is that there is an exemption on bulk fuels for the farm. There isn't an alternative for natural gas and propane. And in fact, natural gas and propane are preferred fuels, if we're going to put it that way. So, if we're really looking at this from, what's supposed to be the end game, we're supposed to be giving a price signal to people to change. Farmers aren't in a position to just drop propane and natural gas for these options, grain drying and barn heating. There aren't
not even
necessarily
close.
Other options.
Not
right?
even close. There is no other option here. So basically this is a tax. There's no other way around it. It's a tax on the food production because we have no alternative. Agriculture is not perfect. I've said this before. We do not have a halo over our heads. We've made mistakes before, but we continue to do better. And when you punish, an industry for something we have no other option for, I don't think it sends the best message to the research community to say, hey, we're open for business. We need you to help us find an alternative. It's like, whoa, I'm hands off on agriculture. This one's too much.
Mm-hmm. And really, I think, there's probably an entire show we could do on this discussion of what's happening at the Senate. But I just want to follow up quickly, Kelvin, on the note about there is a way that essentially, could the Senate just continue to kick the can on this and never let it get to royal assent?
Yes, there is a way. Without getting too technical, every amendment has there's a 15-day rule. So as long as it gets debated every 15 days, that clock starts again, and it doesn't need to necessarily go to a vote. And so if they want to play games in the Senate, there is a way that the government could do this if they want to make it that high a priority. And the why behind this is still a little bit unclear, other than this is kind of this untouchable, or at least until that heating oil exemption announcement a couple weeks ago, the carbon tax was kind of seen as an untouchable for the Liberals, but that illusion was shattered. And so now it seems like this bill has been kind of caught up in the backlash to that decision. And we've seen Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault go out and say that basically if he's Environment Minister, there will be no more carve-outs, and word is that he will quit if there's any more carve-outs allowed here. And Bill C-234, this has been a multi-year effort. This was well on its way. It was in the Senate already when that heating oil announcement was announced a couple of weeks ago. So there's been a much longer lead time and effort going into this. But there's some people saying, well, Guilbeault is going to walk if this gets through, so maybe that's why these senators are fighting it, and the Prime Minister's office are having them fight it so hard. But to me, it's in the big picture, it sends a message of how these senators and how the Prime Minister's office view agriculture, and it's quite disappointing to have that message be sent, and that disregard that. Sure, if you live in Atlantic Canada, where you're in a riding that is usually votes Liberal, then it really matters what your opinion is on this. But if you live in a mostly conservative rural riding where agriculture is important, that's not as high a political priority. And to me, it sends that message quite clearly.
Kelvin, I totally agree with you. I think there's no way that there's not a connection between all that heat pump Atlantic Canada, carve out of last week and this. This would have been viewed as, yet another carve out, regardless of the fact that this has been going on for years, that we've been working on it. But I also was listening in on your last week's issues panel a few days ago, and I disagree with Megan. I do think that this might be a big hit to their carbon tax billboard. The fact that they're just not thinking these tiny little things through, carbon tax versus affordability. I cannot help but hope, fingers crossed, that becomes the biggest conversation we have leading up to the next election.
Okay, we have to take a break, but oh my gosh, I'm furiously writing things down, and there's so many ways you could take this. But we have so many other things to cover on this panel today. So let's take a quick break, and we'll be back with more of the RealAg Issues panel right after this.
If I asked you, what's the most important tool on your farm? You'd probably think of tractors, trucks, and implements first. But it's actually something much bigger than that. Your soil is the most important equipment you own. The real question is, are you doing enough to keep it running at peak performance? Nutrien Smart Nutrition MAP plus MST is engineered with patented micronized sulfur technology to refuel your soil for maximum yields. Learn how to tune up your soil at smartnutritionmst.com.
Before you get back in the field this year, spend some time with the Corn School on RealAgriculture.com. Get all the information you need on hybrid selection, planting depth, crop inputs, and more from a wide range of industry experts. A massive library of video content is available on demand when you need it most. Spend your time outside of the field, inside the classroom, with the Corn School on RealAgriculture.com.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on this Friday. I am your host, Lyndsey Smith, and this segment is brought to you by Co-op. Co-op's Grown with Purpose recognizes how your farm brings sustainability, agronomics, and safety to our food, community, and environment. What you do matters. Make it count. Contact your local Co-op Grow team member to learn more. All right, we've got a special guest joining the issues panel. So we have Cherilyn Jolly-Nagel out of Saskatchewan. We've got Kelvin Heppner out of Altona. And joining us from Germany, we have a stranger to the show, Shaun Haney. How are you, Shaun?
Oh, I'm good, Lyndsey. I've had 2 pints of Beck's, and I'm about to go for schnitzel. I'm ready to go.
These are the important things. German beer and schnitzel. All right. Okay. So it is late in the day there. So we do thank you for joining us. You missed some very exciting stuff in the last segment, but now we need to talk about Federal Ag Minister Lawrence MacAulay, his discussion with Kelvin, because there were a couple bombs dropped in that discussion, Kelvin. One of them, of course, as we know, the Sustainable Ag Strategy, not sure where that's going to go, but he did confirm that agriculture is going to have to find that 3% budget cut.
Yes, this is in line with the other departments. We heard from the Treasury Board President Anita Anand back in, I believe it was September, maybe August, say that all cabinet ministers needed to find $15 billion in savings. And Minister McCauley confirmed in our conversation yesterday that Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada is going to be facing a 3% budget cut. He wouldn't provide any details on where that would be. He said they're going to try to save all the programming, but obviously that doesn't always work. So yeah, budget cuts coming to AAFC. That's one of the nuggets that came from that conversation. He also said that while you mentioned the Sustainable Ag Strategy, that those meetings continue. We have yet to have that report on the consultations that took place this year. It's expected sometime this fall. Originally, the draft version of that Sustainable Ag Strategy was also supposed to come before the end of this calendar year. Now it sounds like that'll be in spring sometime. And there has been rumblings of some of the groups. There's more than 20 stakeholder groups at the table as part of the advisory panel for the government's Sustainable Ag Strategy. And there have been rumblings that not everybody sees eye to eye, and they've been having trouble coming to an agreement on some terms here. And he acknowledged that, I think he used the word probably when I asked him if he's concerned about groups stepping away from the table and things, not everybody remaining involved in it. So that's something to keep an eye on. There was also what else was there? There was the Indo-Pacific Trade Office. He said he's expecting it to open in February. So that's the agriculture-specific outreach office that'll be located in Manila in the Philippines. And people should listen to the interview. There were a bunch of other topics that we covered as well in that conversation yesterday.
So now he was, of course, just fresh off a tour of the Indo-Pacific region. He had spent some time in Vietnam. Cherilyn, the idea that, the government wants to spend more time, they've made the commitment of this office, some staff members there. From the farmer perspective, recognizing how important this region is to Canadian products, what's your hope for this?
Without question, the Indo-Pacific is incredibly important to Canadian agricultural exports, but even more specifically, it's incredibly important to the prairies. The Indo-Pacific, to be really blunt, is a more important market to the prairies than the rest of Canada. It certainly rivals NAFTA. We have, I think it's 3/4 of all the Canadian exports that go to the Indo-Pacific come from the prairies. So it is of particular interest to us out here that we build these relationships. And it's a bit terrifying when you look up, if you just type in, let's just take India, for example. If you just type in Canada, India right now into your Google search, good grief, it is an absolute disaster of a relationship. So I like this idea of a federal office in the Indo-Pacific to help manage specifically Canadian agricultural trade. And it really isn't just about, I've argued for market access around the world that, in my opinion, is a role of government to continue to deliver market access. In this case, it's really about reducing non-tariff barriers. It's about building the relationships that we have with those markets already. I'm not so worried about just increasing the market access. We need to manage what we have now because we can't afford to lose it.
So relationships. Okay, yeah, go ahead, Shaun. I was going to say that the U.S. gave us a bit of a, hey, you need to fix this week.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought that was interesting.
Secretary of State Anthony Blinken basically said, India and Canada figure this out. Blinken encouraged India to cooperate with Canada on the investigation in terms of the evidence that the Prime Minister was talking about in the House of Commons going back a couple months ago. So that's a part of it. I think, the Indo-Pacific is clearly very, very important. It's encouraging they have the office. I think there's lots of room for growth. It's more than just keeping what we have. I think, if you talk to most people that are in the export market, they'll tell you that there is a lot of opportunity, especially on the protein side with pork and beef, to make dramatic increases to the volumes. Now, remember, though, Cherilyn, your comment about NAFTA, I have to disagree. I think Indo-Pacific is very important, but that's the export of the raw commodities. when we look at the USMCA CUSMA agreement, that is important from the integrated value chain standpoint, not just the exported raw commodities or the finished products. And we heard Stuart Skinner, pork farmer from Ontario, from Perth County, on yesterday's show, actually. And, he talked about how if they didn't have the ability to ship pigs down to U.S. plants, not quite sure what exactly the Ontario hog market would look like at this point. So both very, very important, but they're also a little bit different.
We're going to have a trade throwdown here on the show on this issues panel. Now, I will say, though, I feel bad for those hog farmers. I mean, Stuart's right, and we just had, of course, the beef market update earlier, hearing from Anne Wasko, and that there's just such a huge divergence in price at the retail level between the two proteins, and the hog farmer is not in good shape right now. Go ahead.
No. They're not. And like, you need to be in the pork market. You need to have, as my dad would say, guts of steel. Stuart put it very well. You're like 30 days from being a millionaire and 30 days away from being broke. And then that pretty much explains it.
Yeah, and if we could make, Kelvin, if we could make hogs all out of bacon, we could solve all the problems. All right, no, Kelvin, go ahead.
Going back to the comments about about the Indo-Pacific being more raw commodities, I think it does still complement our NAFTA trade and our processing at home here, because, for example, all this new canola crush capacity in Western Canada that's coming on stream in the next couple of years, one of the big questions is where's all that canola meal going to go? And Vietnam is a big part of that. China, of course, as well, but Vietnam has a lot of potential as an export market for that canola meal, which, of course, facilitates and allows for all that canola oil production to happen back here in Western Canada.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the other thing I saw today. I tried to get a snapshot of it, but the bus was moving too fast. At the Frankfurt airport earlier today, we were getting bussed from the plane to the terminal, and there was a huge storage, I don't know what you would, like, it's not a bin, it's like one of those big oil storage units, whatever you want to call it, and it had on it contains sustainable aviation fuel. And thought, it's going to be interesting to see how many more of those we see, not just in Europe, but over in North America, as we see U.S. and Canadian airlines buy into the fact that SAF does have a potential, which is a good thing for soybean and canola growers, and possibly also corn growers too, if ethanol gets approved.
Do you mean to tell me that they don't have giant batteries for those electric planes, or no?
Well, I don't know. They may sticker the plane with it, but I'm not getting it.
Did you audit what was inside the tanker?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Good point, Cherilyn. Good point.
Yeah. Okay. And Shaun, as a journalist, we actually need that as a stock shot. So next time, if you could, make sure you get that photo. Okay. Just put that on your to-do list for this week. All right. We do have a couple minutes left in this segment, and we're going to do a bit of a 180, but also very close to home for you, Cherilyn. We did see this week that John Gormley did not say the retirement word entirely, but he is stepping away from his show. And full disclosure, Cherilyn, there was a lot of chatter here at RealAg as to who was going to fill that chair, and your name did come up. So you didn't get the call. What happened?
Who said I didn't get the call? You guys, I'm busy, Right. Sometimes I turn down offers. I don't know if you know about that, but sometimes I turn down offers. It was, I can't say that it was unexpected. John's been a good friend for so many years, but he really did, and I posted about it later on, he really did give me so much leeway. For 20 years, he would invite the wheat growers and me, when I was president of the wheat growers, to just hammer on these issues. And that high-pitched, screechy voice I deliver on the radio, he let me do that over and over and over again. And he's truly just become a legend in the province. And the outpouring of affection and some applause, from the NDP, and certainly the city of Saskatoon, the mayor of Saskatoon, I think, was cheersing. But it's a sad day out here. And I actually did the same thing to Quick Dick. I'd sent him a note and said the same thing, like, I don't know how you're going to juggle radio host and farming, but good on you. Mm-hmm. So I think we were all playing to see if there might be some agriculture connection to the new voice.
Yeah, it would have been nice, but of course, not the direction that they went in. But certainly, you're right. Gormley is a polarizing figure at times. To put it lightly. But okay, Kelvin, though, this is the list of retiring veteran broadcasters is kind of long.
Yeah.
This year alone.
Yeah, in all of media, a lot of those kind of legends of the media business and institutions, like Cherilyn referred to, in terms of Gormley and the impact he's had on the province of Saskatchewan over the last couple of decades, they're all getting older, and so they move on. But and also media is changing, of course, more podcasts and more other formats where there are rising stars and people kind of carving out that place, and I think they'll have the same type of influence going forward. But we all got to move on at some point, I guess.
Mm-hmm. But, is this a good
time? Is this a good time to tell you guys I'm quitting?
And click.
Shaun, you weren't even supposed to be on this issues panel. You weren't supposed to be on here.
We tried. Yeah, exactly. No, it's Shaun, you didn't get the call either, so there you go. But that's okay. We've got our own show that we run.
Oh, we got our own show on RealAg.
We got our own show on RealAg, so it's
on
fine.
The weekends.
Yeah.
That's
anyway,
right.
That's right. Okay, and the only constant is change. And with that, though, let's take a quick break. We've got one more segment with the issues panel. We'll be back right after this.
Canola is more than just a pretty face in the prairie landscape. It's a big business, both here and around the world, that requires you to be informed and up to date on everything it takes to grow a successful crop. The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com has an expert library of video resources covering markets, agronomy, and more to help you grow a healthy and profitable canola crop. Visit canolaschool.com today. Brought to you by BASF Canada and Invigor Hybrid Canola.
What's next for your fields? At Pioneer, delivering industry-leading genetics drives everything we do. From the scientists in the lab to our local teams with boots on the ground, we are determined to get there first. Developing top-performing products, proven in more growing conditions than ever before. Pioneer. What's next happens here. Visit pioneer.com/Canada to learn more.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio. I am your host, Lyndsey Smith, and this segment is brought to you by MNP.ca. Seeking professional advice for your farm and business, MNP's team of agriculture specialists cover it all. From business planning and tax guidance to financial projections, farm succession, and risk management, visit MNP.ca to connect with the experts today. All right, we do have the issues panel. We've got Cherilyn Jolly-Nagel, we've got Kelvin Heppner, and we have, for a brief moment, Shaun Haney, but you've got to go. Shaun, have a wonderful day over there.
That sounds like an end of like a Paul Harvey segment or something. Good day.
Get out of here.
Yeah, get out.
Yeah, no, I got to take the gang out. We've traveled all day. I got to take the gang out for supper to get rested up. Tomorrow's a big day of planning for Agritechnica that begins on Sunday, and just want to encourage everybody to check out RealAgriculture.com. And all of our coverage will be putting videos up as the week progresses. And on Instagram, we got a bunch of plans when it comes to things like reels and things like that. So looking forward to bringing all the content home for everybody. I saw a bunch of farmers today from Canada and more that are actually on their way to Hanover. Looking forward to connecting with everybody. And also a big shout out to Corteva Agriscience and Optimum Gly, a new canola trait from Corteva, for being our sponsors of Agritechnica coverage. So thanks so much. And you guys, I'll let you guys finish the panel. I got to run, and we'll see everybody soon.
All right, have a great week, Shaun. Okay.
Have fun,
now
Shaun.
He's gone. Yeah, now that he's gone, we can talk about it. Just kidding. Phew. Okay. What a roller coaster of a show, everybody. We have people jumping on and jumping off. Amazing. Okay. Cherilyn, I want to start with you. You were at an event. It's called Imagine 2080. First, what the heck is this? And tell us about your experience.
I get, honestly, some of the coolest invitations and opportunities to share the agriculture story, but this one might be right near the top. So Imagine 2080 was the title of the conference. It was through Futures Canada. McMaster University was hosting this conference. And it was challenging participants. It was by invitation only, about 150 people, like people who are futurists and future strategists. And like they actually have these words on their business card. I didn't even know that was a career. And they came to this conference with an open mind, meant to share some thoughts and ideas about what Canada could look like in 2080. So like 50 plus years from now. They did that intentionally because 2030, there's lots of programming that would get us up to like 2050. So they want to make sure it's past and beyond anything that we're thinking about right now. So a cool concept. So just one piece of it was me about agriculture. They asked me to give a presentation. They gave me 10 minutes. I took 12. That was called The Future of Agriculture. And they gave me absolutely no restrictions whatsoever. Talk about the future of agriculture. I mean, man, I painstakingly talked to so many people about what I should focus my energy on, the future of agriculture. And what it came down to for me, the biggest challenge for me to talk about the future of agriculture is that the majority of the general population, when they think about agriculture today, their perception is from 50 years ago. So I'm thinking, how do I face this challenge that is, I can't describe the future of agriculture when they have no idea where we are at right now. So that's what I went to do. I took, the better half of my presentation time I tricked them a little bit. I said, look, I've got two things that I imagine for the future of agriculture. And I gave them, imagine if farmers could grow more food, fuel, and fiber without needing more land to do it. And then my second imagine if Canada could become a leader in global food security. Wouldn't that be something to be proud of? And then I hit them with, I have a confession to make. This vision already exists today. Because they were frantically writing down. I was watching the audience, and as I'm describing these two things that I imagine for the future, they're frantically writing them down. Some of them were Twitter posting them already. It was already out on social media. The farmers want these two things. And then I hit them with, this already exists today. And I showed them all the pictures I could about where we are at right now for farming, like the equipment, the use of GPS, the no-till technology, the seed technology, hammered that at them. Hammered pictures of the Global Institute for Food Security that exists already today in Saskatchewan. And then I gave them the one thing that I could, that seemed to be a common thread amongst people I talked to for the future is trust. It's the one thing that I really, truly hope that we have long before 2080, but it's a requirement. If any of the cool innovations that Shaun and the other team is going to see at Agritechnica, if we hope that those are going to come to fruition, we absolutely need public trust to do it. If the public doesn't trust us and they keep taking away our tools, fighting us on GMOs, fighting us on glyphosate, fighting us on, diesel for tractors, all of these things that we need today, there's no hope that we can, think about a future in 2080 that includes cool and unique things.
So I love that people are writing things down. That's always and then a plot twist. No, but so the other thing, I think, to build off that, Cherilyn, though, and Kelvin, we heard, over the last week, definitely this focus on people, on talent, on labor force, on workers, and that we've also, we've got a huge gap in filling the role. So we talked a little bit about it last week. We did see, though, we saw a campaign launch this week of the I Am Ag. Kelvin, we are behind the 8 ball, though, on this industry really being what it could be if we don't have the people to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And Shaun's not here anymore, but I'll use one of his lines. He likes to talk about how the well of farm kids is drying up. In the past, our industry has relied on farm kids, and we've increased efficiency, so we don't need as many people. But going forward, we're going to need people to work in agriculture that haven't grown up on the farm. And so, like Cherilyn said, that trust and that connection and that awareness of how food is raised and how we increase the potential for our food security and food production capacity here. One thing, we're always, people will be hungry, so we need if we don't have food production. So there will always be a need for it, but it's a matter of whether we reach that potential.
Well, and it's a good point, Kelvin, that you bring up. And Cherilyn, I'd love to know, what were some of the questions after the fact that came out of that? Was your plot twist well received? Let's put it that way.
My head was spinning. Like, the questions were fantastic, like really and truly great questions. And they, once again, I keep telling my farmer colleagues, like, you will be the rock star when you go to these conferences. They still trust farmers. They are just fascinated when you show them. And I had some of the best pictures you could think of, my kids operating this big tractor, and they never questioned it, because I had established some trust and some genuine interest. But the questions were fantastic, and it led me into so many other great opportunities to have conversations around things like carbon tax. I asked them about what their thoughts were on carbon tax, and then I shared with them what it means to agriculture, that it could be the single worst policy to come federally and filter all the way back down to farmers. And they were shocked by what the carbon tax means and does for me. I also had to disclose to them, well, didn't have to, but I chose to disclose that I am, one of those devils who drives SUVs. And let me tell you why I need this SUV. And I showed them pictures of where my actual farm is, and where the town is, and where my kids go to school. I talked about independence. Here's what's interesting. Their vision of the future of 2080 for Canada was very much collective. It was visions of all of us living together and sharing everything together. And when I stepped in and said, that's not my vision at all, I'm teaching my kids independence. Of course, generosity and taking care of people, but we teach our kids on the farm independence, because nobody's there but you to shovel the snow out of your yard, to fix your water, to do this. It isn't about who can help me. It's you have to help yourself. So we have these fantastic conversations about just life living rurally and how that can shape your political perspective. But once the trust was established, we could truly have great conversations. Did not agree on everything. But Lyndsey, my question to you is, because you live there, you live out east, do you get these kinds of conversations all the time? And are you helping us in the agriculture industry to help kind of dispel some of these myths every time it's proposed to you?
So, and it's an interesting point, because I think that part of that conversation is about access. So when you get invited to this conference, that is an amazing introduction to that group, and it opens the door, like you said, to build that trust and have those conversations. We have to have the opportunity to have them. So realistically, it's where we have to go, I think, where these conversations are happening, because ultimately they're not necessarily coming to us. And so given the opportunity, absolutely, these are really interesting conversations to have, and can be, I know for me, and we probably feel the same on this one, is it's a very encouraging, I get my energy from it to have some of these aha moments with people, just for them to see sort of a different perspective of something that maybe they feel very strongly about. And again, to your point, it's not about being right or, necessarily changing someone's mind because they're wrong. You don't have to build agreement. It's about having that dialogue and the conversation, which is just so important. But we are out of time, so we could continue this for hours, I'm pretty sure. But we'll stop it there. Would love your feedback. If you've got thoughts on this conversation or any of the ones from the show today, give us a call on that feedback line, 1-855-776-6147, or find us across social media at Real Agriculture. Kelvin, have a wonderful weekend with the new chicks.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, we got a new batch of chicks this morning, so I'm also going to go have a nap because the truck arrived at 3:30 this morning.
You cannot refer to us as chicks. That's derogatory. They are women. You're not allowed to say
no, these are day-old chickens. So
there you go. Legitimate chicks. Yeah, go take a nap, Kelvin. All right, and Cherilyn, thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend.
My absolute pleasure.
All right. Okay, and I am actually in the driver's seat all next week while Shaun is in Germany, so I will talk to you on Monday.